The 213th Field Artillery Battalion was Southern Utah National Guard. Most of those individuals were active members of the church, but we had a modern-day Helaman guiding and directing that group.
Mr. Frank Daly was our commander and one of the finest men that you will ever meet.
And the thing that impressed me is that he knew all of our names.
Frank was a school teacher.
And he was a righteous man, a God-fearing man, and he received inspiration after inspiration concerning our battalion and the men in that battalion, what he should do and what he shouldn't do.
Well, Frank was raised in a prayerful home, and this, of course, did not cease. He made a habit of being prayerful throughout the time we were there at Korea. He was very faithful about that. He didn't ever make a show of it. In fact, we didn't know that that was going on except through subtle signals.
Colonel Daly would hang a white flag on the front of his tent every single morning, and he'd close the tent. And when that white flag was there, we knew he was in prayer.
And he told me one day, he says, Wayne, he says, I guess you wonder why I don't want to be disturbed at that time. I said, no, I don't wonder about it. I know what you're doing. He said, well, let's go with that.
Our battalion was pretty much Mormon battalion. Very religious, the whole lot of them.
Frank Daly and I had been close buddies in World War II. And he let him talk me into taking command of the Battery B of the 213th. And within a year, I was on my way to Korea. Anyway, before we left, I realized that my wife and I both realized that we had not been sealed in the temple. So we went to the temple here in St. George with our two little children, and we were sealed in the temple. And on our way out, President Snow, and he said, Brother Johnson, you men are going to face some rather perilous situations in wherever you're going, but don't worry about it. If you'll keep the faith, you will all return.
My dad was the temple president here at St. George. He was for 26 years. And he told me, he said, if you'll live like you're supposed to, and he didn't preach to me, but he said, you'll be all right.
And every single man came under that blanket of his prophecy. You might call it, I call it a prophecy. He deliberately said, if you'll keep the faith, you'll return.
A number of Chinese troops had been pretty well encircled by some of our infantry on armored divisions, and they decided to break through, and the place that they chose to break through was right through Headquarters Battery and A Battery.
But the Chinese had jammed our radio, and we tried many times to get into Corps headquarters to find out what they wanted us to do.
The Chinese, their leaders, had let them go, and they all come right down on us.
Here they came, yelling and shouting. It was kind of a horrifying thing, trying to come right through Headquarters Battery and A Battery.
We were directly in support of one company of the 4th Infantry Division. They were just a couple of hundred yards ahead of us. I was just going on duty at 5 minutes after 2, or 5 minutes to 2 in the morning, and I mean it broke loose. Tracers filled that sky. The Chinese attacked that little company of 4th Infantry Division. In just a few minutes, they were totally wiped out.
The Chinese used soldiers to save their ammunition. They just run them through with no weapons to run us out of ammunition.
There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of shooting.
You're shooting from every direction and shooting every weapon you could find that had ammunition in it.
But there were thousands of them.
At 9:15, there was a silence with the Chinese for just a few minutes. Corps headquarters said, move to your south position immediately. By then, the 10 divisions of Chinese had surrounded us. We were totally surrounded in that little canyon, and we had 16 or 17 miles of narrow canyon to fight our way out of that canyon to survive.
Sometimes the shooting was so close that it'd just ring your ears, ring your head. They were just shooting so close, but they just weren't hitting me.
When the dust had cleared, there wasn't a one of our men that had been killed nor wounded.
The 555th Field Artillery, Wyoming Field Artillery Battalion, a sister battalion of ours, gun for gun, man for man. That company was wiped out.
200-300 men right there wiped out, and yet we didn't lose anybody. Well, that's it. You wonder why me and why am I coming out whole? And so many men are laying here dead on both sides. And that's what it was. It was a miracle because we all went in there and we all come back out alive. It's just one of them deals.
We brought many Chinese prisoners back to headquarters that morning, and they kept saying, "We can't understand this. We can't understand this. We shoot you, but you don't fall." And they would.
I am sure we had higher power, or we wouldn't have all come back.
And as you look at these 41 National Guard units that went, 19 artillery outfits, and we were the only one that didn't lose any Guard guys, there was some reason to believe that somebody was watching out for us.
It was an experience I can do without another one. It was, I don't know, I really don't. 50 years later, it still scares me sometimes.
I had to have that experience to know that the entire Book of Mormon was true. And now I know it is. Even the story of the 2,060 stripling youngsters, I know it's true because we experienced almost identically the same thing they experienced.
He said, you men are going to be going into some perilous situations, but he says, if you will keep the faith, you will all return. And it literally came true. You've heard that some of the men got injured slightly, but every single man came back.
When our Heavenly Father places His hand on an individual or a group of individuals, no power on this earth can destroy them.
It makes me have cold chills when I think about it, because I know that our Heavenly Father took care of us.
The prayers brought those men home, along with the leadership of a modern-day Helaman.
And had a lot of respect for his men, and his men had an awful lot of respect for him.
When he went into the war, he had brown hair, weighed about 175 pounds. When he came out, he was gray, almost white. He had thinned down to around 130 or somewhere like that. And in my watching him, he took everything so seriously, so he was concerned. And everybody knew that he was in there seeking guidance. And we happened to believe that he got it.